Hello, YouTube, all you guys out there. Thanks for listening. Tonight we have Philip Hudok, who is basically speaking on and about the issue of Thomas House of Deegan, who, for those of you who are just tuning in, this gentleman was simply trying to restore constitutional law in West Virginia and was carted off for terrorist threats, or that was the accusation, and has been detained since then. And apparently his arraignment is coming up. And Philip, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
How would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay. Well, I'm a 40-year-old physics teacher, or a 40-year teacher. I'm actually 65, but I live in West Virginia, and got tied up with Gene Stonecker and Thomas House of Deegan. I was chairman of the Constitution Party, and I'm presently running for governor in West Virginia, not so much to continue the corporate fiction that we have, but rather to expose it. And I got involved with
Phil, when you say corporate fiction, let's kind of elaborate a bit on that, because a lot of people, we're just starting off the show, so let's digress a little bit on the corporate fiction, could we?
For sure. Our founders had the idea, or said, that we were to have government of, by, and for the people. Unfortunately, it's changed from what they envisioned, from what they intended. And quite a while back, the U.S. government incorporated. And of course, you can't have government of, by, and for the people when you have government of, by, and for the corporations. So, was that
the state of Columbia or something along those lines?
What's that?
Was that like state of Columbia? I can't remember the actual.
Well, the federal government is really only supposed to have jurisdiction in the District of Columbia and
district. Oh, yeah. State.
District of Columbia. Right. Well, you're from Canada, I understand.
Right. Yeah. I have provinces and stuff, right? So
yeah. We don't have provinces.
Right. Sorry.
But we do have a bogus, hijacked, illegitimate government.
Oh, we got one of those too, actually.
Yeah. Well, I know you're under the Queen.
Well, okay. If you show me yours, I'll show you mine.
But at any rate, I can't tell McDonald's how to run their company, because they're a corporation, and a corporation is actually a legal fiction. It's a creation of the government. So, and what's really interesting, being in West Virginia, this is the only state in the United States that I'm aware of. Virginia used to have the same a constitutional statute that said that churches cannot incorporate, and West Virginia still has it. In Virginia, it was actually taken to court by Jerry Falwell, a very wealthy Christian personality who has what they call Liberty University in Virginia. But he actually took what was a good statute, he fought it. And churches should definitely not be incorporated. We're having problems with churches having to do things that go against their fundamental beliefs, because they're tied to the government now.
Yeah, well, the Vatican's incorporated, so.
Right. That's I believe, Thomas did a lot of research into that, and that's where incorporation probably has all its origins. Yeah, that's the problem.
Later on, we could talk about the Trans-Pacific Partnership and how these things go beyond American borders and actually affect the entire planet, and all of the G20 and all that other bullshit. But yeah, hopefully we can get our friend on here soon and we can digress further. But let's stick to more localized issues. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have actually back in February. That's when we went to the West Virginia legislature and petitioned them for redress of grievances and breach of contract. And we accepted their oaths of office. One thing led to another. They really wouldn't answer. So then we went to the governor. We petitioned him. We petitioned the attorney general. And again, we didn't get any satisfactory response.
Of course not.
And then, of course, we filed a writ of habeas corpus in the state Supreme Court. Probably the first time that anyone petitioned the Supreme Court directly. Normally, it's called the Supreme Court of Appeals that takes appeals from lower courts. Well, we went directly to the state Supreme Court and eventually we even brought them into the case. We named them as defendants because they're incorporated too. So,
Well,
yeah, we're not very well liked.
Pretty much everything that you think that your government is handling, and believe it's true, is being outsourced. It's outsourced contracting, and it happens across the board. And take corporations who are protected by privacy laws and new developments in contract law, and they can basically operate with it without any kind of impunity whatsoever.
That's true.
And they're protected, and it's horrible because I mean that way the government can act like they're acting when they're actually really just simply going through the motions, and it's really kind of sick.
Exactly. The corporation is the machine by which they operate. If you were to dissolve these corporations, they couldn't get away with the things they're doing. So that's why we wanted to throw a monkey wrench into their corporate Borg machine, and we really did. As far as the legal sense, we did.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. And Tom is in jail. I mean, somebody got mad.
Well, they can't have someone expose, their, as George Carlin said, it's a big club and you ain't in it.
Right.
They have to keep the people amused, distracted, and dumbed down, and they've done a great job.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, so where are we today, Phil? Where are we? What's happening right now? We can. A lot of people that might just be coming into this might not know the history. We can kind of go back and recede into that. But those who have been paying attention, let's go forward. What is actually happening right now?
Right now, Thomas has been in jail, North Central Regional Jail, for over 100 days. He was abducted from his house. He was brutalized. He had a shoulder separation. They had to take him to the hospital, and he didn't put up any resistance. Basically, they said he has threatened terrorism. And I guess, if you have a government that's operating, well, it's a hijacked government, and you do what the Declaration of Independence says, and that is it's the people's duty to actually throw off tyranny. Well, then I guess, these government corporate fictions look at anyone who would expose and beat them in court and then say, well, listen, you need to be replaced. The people need to do their duty. And so that would be, by their standards, classified as terrorism. So he was taken to jail. They're even saying that he violated home confinement. So there are two hearings scheduled.
Well, that was that was a statute. Correct me if I'm wrong. Wouldn't that be the statute in which that they used as a reason to go into his home and abduct him?
No, I wouldn't say that's why they went in, but
I'm making an assumption. I'm just kind of going out on a limb, but I mean, they can't go in because they can't use the Constitution against them because they're not bound by it in the first place. So they have to create some reason in order to. They got all kinds of like anti-terrorism rules and everything else that's going out now. Like, I guess they have. They don't even have to have a reasonable cause to go into your house now. The way that they go.
Right, and of course, everything changed since 9/11, and that was just to give them, to create terror and to give them the excuse to push through more statutes against the people.
And that's where people just give up their sovereign rights. I wouldn't even say sovereign. Sorry, God-given or natural rights.
God-given rights, yes, and most people have given up. It's evident by the way they act and the way they respond or don't respond.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, we have 2 hearings coming up. One is, and we haven't the slightest idea how he could have violated home confinement. They pulled him out of the home. He hadn't left home, but then when they roughed him up, they actually did knock off his ankle bracelet. So we don't know. They
didn't he get hurt? Didn't he need hospitalization immediately for his shoulder?
Yeah,
because
he got a dislocated shoulder, and they had to take him to the hospital before they took him to the jail.
Right. That's what you do with somebody who isn't being a threat and who isn't outwardly being violent or anything. You know what I mean? Like,
no,
give me a break.
Well, it's to set an example for other people too. It's futile to go against, the machine, because they have little regard for anything moral or good or righteous.
Right. Well, the Borg said it. The Borg from Star Trek: The Next Generation. They said it. Resistance is futile.
Right. So he's facing a hearing on Monday. This is for threats of terrorism. That's on the 25th, and then on Tuesday, January 20th, he'll be in another hearing, and this is for a violation of home confinement.
Wow.
And carry up to 5 years. And what they want to do is silence him. They want to keep him. They want to keep him on ice.
Wow. Now, okay, Phil, do you have any insight into? I'm sure you're well aware of the video from his initial hearing. Did he get right to counsel? Did he get somebody that he can talk to inside or outside of the bar?
No, I understand. Thomas has claimed expatriation. He put the government on notice that since he didn't want to contract with them, they don't keep their contracts even.
Right.
So
no,
they
sell
already
them. They sell them. Yeah.
Right. So he notified them, and in the magistrate court, he wanted assistance of counsel, and so he kept telling the magistrate. Waters was her name, that he didn't understand what she was telling him, which was not he didn't want to be under her jurisdiction, and that's what he meant by understand. It's understanding, you know what I mean? He does not want to stand under the corporate jurisdiction. So he wanted simply assistance of counsel. However, she refused his plea for assistance of counsel and said, we will assign you an attorney, even though that attorney, Oshaway is his name, even though that attorney told the magistrate that if he operated as assistance of counsel as Thomas wanted, he would be violating his agreement with the Bar Association. So he tried to be dismissed, and she would not have that. So he's being forced an attorney. Understand, we sued, the bar was one of the defendants eventually in our case in the Supreme Court. which we won. So now
Right.
he's being forced to take a corporate bar attorney. He is not allowed to defend himself. If he speaks in court, which is what has happened in subsequent hearings in circuit court with Judge Reed, who is the one involved in the home confinement situation. When he started to speak in the courtroom, he was removed from the courtroom, so he cannot speak in his own defense. And he feels that if he does, they will declare that he is incompetent and definitely railroad him with a bar attorney who will only be the person speaking in his defense.
Right.
And of course,
Well, the thing is, though, is that like, I mean, ultimately, it's a war of jurisdiction, right? And
yes,
and it was quite clear. Judge, I want to call her something else, but I can't remember her name. You know what I'm talking about. She, quite frankly, she did very well not losing her mind, because you could tell that she was definitely losing her shit. But in a war of jurisdiction, she always mentioned that this would not be functional in my court or in our court. She used both terms during that. And again, it's all about jurisdiction.
Exactly. And I've been in courtrooms where the judge has said you cannot bring up the Constitution, which is supposed to be the supreme law of the land.
It supersedes. It supersedes all law, all statutory law. Sorry, not all law. It only supersedes statutory law.
Right. But quite often, these judges use the phrase "my courtroom," and she did too. Yes.
Yeah, she did. She definitely did. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I'm going to be able to play it just yet, because I have to kind of sort out some sound stuff that I didn't have sorted prior to setting up for the podcast. So I apologize, people who are listening. I will provide links to Thomas Deegan's court hearing. Remember what that was there, Phil? That was
what's that?
His court hearing. That was
magistrate court.
Magistrate court. That was like November, wasn't it?
October.
Oh, it was October.
I believe it was October.
October. And you posted it in November. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Anyway, I will provide links for that and probably play it out at some point tonight. You wouldn't be able to get any audio because I don't have my audio software set up. Sorry, I dropped the ball. But that aside, though, it's a brilliant video. Thomas House of Deegan is in court, and when he expresses to the judge that he does not understand what is happening, it's simply because if he doesn't understand what's happening, then nothing the court says can be binding.
Correct.
And pretty much everything that the judge said at all the entire time had no bounds. It was pretty brilliant. It was really nice to see somebody exert it, and he kept his cool the entire time.
Yes, he did. Mm-hmm. Right. The court system is in a quandary because they have to expose their corporate to Borg, as you say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, I mean, those who know already know that. Well, they work within a certain jurisdiction, but as soon as somebody tries to expose that, they either work. How can I say? We were talking about it earlier with outsourced contractors for other things that you think the government does, but now they do it with kind of like just like fool techniques. Like they just, hey, look what's in this hand. Why are you doing this? And they just trick you. And hopefully you're not quick enough to catch it, right? Or smart enough to know the law, or this, that. Yeah, they pretty much just pull the wool over your eyes, and it's kind of sad, to be honest with you.
It is very sad.
I've seen a few things myself just in the last year alone, and it's been a rough go, but you know, we're still here and a little smarter. But wow,
Yeah, well, we're in a scientific technocracy, and 2 nights ago, or 3 nights ago, I did a show, 2 hour show, and 1 hour was about H.G. Wells and what can be learned from his writing. He was a Fabian socialist, and
right?
you know, these folks, what smarts they don't have, they get from their think tanks, from these people like H.G. Wells. But
Yeah,
it is a scientific technocracy, and
it
they know how
really
to
is.
tweak people. Yeah.
It's been happening for 2,000 years, Phil. This isn't
Oh,
something
it's
new.
nothing new.
Yeah,
Right.
this has been going on for a long time, and you know, now it's spread into Hollywood and rap music and a whole bunch of other things. But I mean, um, even spearmint gum. But hey, who's keeping track? All right. So next Thursday, 6 days, 6 days, 7 days,
6 days on Monday.
6 days on Monday is Thomas Deegan's arraignment.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's if they're
is there
telling
gonna,
me the truth.
is there now? Is there going to be any coverage of that? Is there going to be any video
Yeah.
coverage? Any audio? Do you have somebody
From what
there?
yeah, I just, Thomas's mother told me the other day that she had heard that WTAP, which is a local TV station in Parkersburg, which is actually on the same piece of property as the courthouse. You could throw you could throw a frisbee from the courthouse and hit the TV station.
Didn't
And
see that one coming.
guess what? The property is under the same corporate ownership for both the court and the TV station, and they've just been given exclusive rights to cover. Um, I think what's happened is they've gotten a black eye from what's been going on with Thomas, and so they're circling the wagons and trying to do damage control. I will
Well,
try.
I
I
think
will
they're
try
also
to
trying
get
to
a
be very careful. I think they're trying to be very careful too. To be honest with you,
camera. I agree.
it,
I agree.
it's a touchy fabric. I mean, you know, and anyone listening, think about this. Um, they don't want people questioning the
hmm
you know the Constitution being soiled upon. Like, no, they want everyone to think that everything's fine and peachy. They just arrested a terrorist, you know, and then no, keep it under no, under close guard.
Yeah,
No,
on my website hudok.info, I have a link to a YouTube video of the last scheduled hearing, which was actually a no hearing, but
right,
we did an interview outside. So, you know, even if I can't videotape inside the courtroom, I can. I will definitely have my video equipment there and do interviews outside. But really, what we need is a show of people. You know, it's
yeah,
supposed to be the people's government, and if the people, uh, you know, if they relinquish their responsibility to this corporate Borg, well, they're going to get
yeah.
what they deserve.
Well, let's define that, Phil, and let's kind of step back from West Virginia. Let's look at not just the Constitution of America, even. Let's look at the constitutional laws that apply to all of these Commonwealth countries right now. And anyone listening, think about this. When your rights are being stepped on, what do? Do you protest? Well, apparently that doesn't work anymore. You literally have to go en masse into the streets, and this is beyond protest. You literally have to arrest the people that are in charge of your false ass government. And, and there's other countries that have done this in the past. Um, doesn't necessarily work when they're under another umbrella, but that's another conversation for another podcast and another day. But on a state level, country by country, I mean, this is something that can be done. And in larger countries where you have multiple states and multiple municipalities, these things, it's how they work around us is because of the size. Is my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when you get multiple jurisdictions and multiple, like, it just creates a bloody federal, like from a federal perspective. Could you imagine the logistical nightmare? Just politicking or policing alone. I mean, you look at Canada. Canada's pretty messed up, dude. Phil, I don't know if you know how Canada's set up. You go to Ontario, which is in the that's by the Great Lakes, next to Quebec, right? You have the Ontario Provincial Police. They got their own provincial police force. And then you go down to municipal level, Toronto, Hamilton, you got all these other cities. They all have their own municipal police forces. As you travel west through Canada, go to Manitoba, guess who's in control? RCMP, Royal Canadian, the Mounties. Yeah, you guys have heard of Mounties. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police are the hired thugs across the whole west of Canada. Even where the elite go to die and spend their money and give their trust funds out to their kids, like the city that I'm in Kelowna, I call it Broken Noggin because I'd rather be broke there than anywhere else in the world. But yeah, we call it's Kelowna, and even there, the elitists. Guess who's in charge? Federal police, and it's just a small city. If you go to Vancouver, they've got municipal police, but you don't have British Columbia provincial police like they do in Ontario. No. They're hired thugs, and we could go into things like the Ottawa shooting and false flags, and how the RCMP plotted with with the government to do this, but that's another conversation for another day. But yeah, so even here, like, we got this level of federal control at the municipal levels when it doesn't need to be. Why? Because the people don't call for it, and that's what disgusts me. And I'm sorry, it was a long-winded way to go to a point, but it's about the people realizing and recognizing who's in control of their streets. And we can't even make a municipal decision. We'd just rather hire the federal thugs. You understand? It took Ontario a long time to establish Ontario police and then establish municipal police at the as you go down the line. But at any rate, I kind of like layers, because it means that you can kind of have a buffer zone between you and the next layer, if you understand the point.
Kind of like a balance of power.
Yeah, and the people listening, like you have a way to you have a venue by which you can push your protest through. When it's the federal police, that's it. That's the highest order. Well, not necessarily. I guess you could say they could call the military out, right? But I mean, but here you have in these towns here out west, yeah, you got the federal police running everything, and there's really no control other than them, and there's no way to establish a route of I can't even say democracy. There's no way to establish a route to get your complaint through that network when it's done federally like that.
Well, here in the States, since post 9/11, we've had the rise of the police state, and so now it's multi-jurisdictional forces. They have what they call fusion centers, which is where the federal government sets up shop in all the states' local areas. Like Charleston has a fusion center.
Right.
All big cities now have fusion centers. And recently, the biggest news is I forget the exact name of it, but the U.S. Attorney General has announced that we're going to have a move to bring in the United Nations forces in what are called safe cities initiatives. And
Safe cities. Oh,
yeah,
oh,
it's
I
called
bet
safe
you
cities.
they sound like very, very large gated communities to me.
How about jails? How about prisons?
I
The
was
whole
being
world
polite.
is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we've gone from rights to privileges, men to fictions, from laws to policy, from masters to slaves. So
Yeah,
now
and this
we
whole
are.
next generation, we don't even have men anymore because there's so much estrogen and all of the byproducts that pretty much everyone's gay anyway. Like coming out
Chemical
the home.
assault. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That
it's
that's that's one of the things I fought against was forced vaccinations.
yeah.
My daughter, as a senior, was told a new policy had been implemented by the health department, not by law, but by policy,
Mm.
that all students, seventh grade and seniors, would have to have booster shots, and she
Oh,
refused to
really?
do that. Yeah, she refused to do that, and I took it to court and tied it up in court long enough for her to graduate valedictorian. But we're under
Uh,
chemical assault, both in our food, in the air with chemtrails, with vaccines, with GMO. I mean, it's a war, and we are
it
the
really is.
enemy. Mhm.
Congratulations to your daughter, by the way, for making valedictorian.
Yeah, I'm very proud of her.
That,
She's
that,
very
that's impressive. Must have been a good payoff for you, eh? Just,
well. Let me tell you how strange it was. My wife and I transferred to the state's smallest public school, which is a K through 12, with only 40 some students, and I taught all science, and she taught all the math. And I transferred up there, and my wife did too, to get our children in a school where it was basically a throwback to the 50s, where there were no locks on the lockers. I heard a curse word one time in the 12 years that I taught there, and that was in a basketball game. Okay, and
that'll
so
happen.
so, but yeah, her senior year, because she wouldn't take the vaccine, she had to stay home, and her mother and I went to teach at the school, but it was tied up in the courts, so they had to provide a what's called a homebound teacher, which was me and a French teacher, and we asked if she could participate in graduation and her prom, and they wouldn't give us an answer. 2 days before graduation, I get a call from the superintendent of schools, and he says, "We just decided your daughter, who's valedictorian, cannot participate in graduation, but she can sit in the audience." Get that?
Oh,
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
yeah.
So I made some calls.
How polite of them.
I mean, it's so ludicrous. It's beyond belief. So, but anyway, I made a call to the newspaper and to the local circuit judge and to the state Department of Education, and the state. I found out later it was actually the state superintendent of schools called the county and said, "What are you trying to prove? Let her graduate." And so she did, and gave her commencement address. But that's the kind of world we live in. It's way down the rabbit hole, as Thomas, Gene, and I used to say.
Yeah, and it's not. It can't be oh, any closer to the truth, man. Like, what boggles my mind are the numbers of people that sit back and eat the horseshit that's handed out. If you pardon my expression, and they just eat it up, they gobble it up, and then defend the system, which is effectively holding a handle to that which is pumping their sphincter, and it's ludicrous.
Hmm. Yeah, it's let's see, what's it called? Willful ignorance. And some of them just can't wrap their mind around that there are people that are so evil that they would do the things that we know that they're doing. And you know, they look at themselves and say, well, I couldn't do that. This can't be true. I mean, when you can pull off 9/11 in plain sight, what can't you do? You know, what can't you do? So
it's almost like, you know, like anybody who knows anybody knows that lawyers are, you know, scum suckers and you know, what have you. But who's the first person they turn to when they run into trouble? You know, and you know, they'll they'll say, "Oh, politicians are all scumbags too," but they end up in a scramble to vote for one of them. I mean, and and they don't even realize that the people they're voting for aren't elected; they're selected. So I mean,
it's all, yeah, it's all joke. But
it really is. It really is a joke.
but when you talk about politicians, you're mainly talking about lawyers anyway. And
Really,
you know,
yeah,
it's really it's actually a
yeah,
conflict of interest for a lawyer to be in politics, because in politics they write the laws that the lawyers are going to make a living on. And so, you know, I don't believe any lawyer should be involved in lawmaking. It's a conflict of interest.
I agree. I agree 100%. The funny thing, they eliminated conflict of interest as an issue though long ago. Corporately speaking, I mean, I mean, I'm talking about the outsourcing of like government contracting, the outsourcing of corporate entities to handle government jobs. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
all this is happening across the board. It handles immigration, does it, customs does it, anything that requires a service basically is outsourced now by the government. So that way that they have absolute impunity across the board. And
Yeah, and they've conditioned the people's thinking. For instance, years ago, on all the crime shows, and we had a show called Perry Mason, and you know, one of the first questions when there was a crime was who profits? Who profits? You never hear that anymore. It's what's the government say, not who profits. You know, so
good
they can
point.
come up with
Yeah,
they can come up with the craziest things, and people don't think. They can't think anymore. They're down to sound bites and pablum from the government.
yeah. And further rhetoric and parroting, of course.
Man, I can tell you, as being having been a teacher in public schools, it was pretty interesting when I found out how they manipulate people. You know, by having people having what they call let's see, what are they called? Facilitators who can make you think that you came up with an idea. And it just drives them nuts when you actually know their psychology and you don't fall for it. And that's what's happened with Thomas, you see. He knows the game. And of course, that makes them extremely irritated. And they'll go to any length.
I'm going to pull that up, and I'm going to play that video, and I'm going to see if I can't get my sound settings to drive that audio through, because it's absolutely brilliant. If people listen to this, they'd lose their minds. They'd laugh on one hand because Judge, what's her name?
Magistrate Waters. Mm-hmm.
Magistrate Waters. Yes. The fine young lady, not reprehensible at all, was simply trying to not lose her mind, because she's trying to work within the jurisdiction of what she knows, and she was she's like tried so hard not to lose it. It was funny. Right? Am I not right?
Oh, you're right. And get this, her husband is a circuit judge in the county.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's cool. Oh, jeez. Did he have any comments on this? Like, is there anything that he's gleaned out of this that he's made public?
Oh, about the relationship between the two?
It's just any comments. I mean, he's probably staying well clear of it, I'm sure. But
Actually, I haven't heard a peep. Yeah, we haven't heard a peep out of him.
Yeah, he's smart. It's like, ooh, sorry, love. You're on your own here. Well, I mean, when things do cross jurisdictions, it does go up against the fabric of the statutory system. And I mean, to anyone listening, I mean, what that really means is that like every single system that you operate under, like whether it's getting a driver's license or or getting a weapons permit or anything along those lines, they become statutory and it becomes under your Sescovy account, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And in this case, with the magistrate, just think about this: if she binds someone over to the what's it called, the grand jury, well, then that could just be more income for her husband, who would be a judge for for things that are indicted on the grand jury level. So
Right.
all in the family.
Or let's be fair, the end of his career. Yeah. But I mean, on a lighter note, yeah, it was. On one hand, it's entertaining. On the other hand, it's disturbing. Am I right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. And
yeah,
what's amazing about this situation is, you look at what's happened in Oregon, what's going on there with
right,
the Hammonds and the Bundys, and then you look at what happened in Kentucky with you had a clerk who wouldn't sign marriage licenses for sodomites, and
right.
what we're involved in here in West Virginia is the foundation of all these things. None of these things can happen if it weren't for this corporate system. So,
Correct.
we had the key to, we had a hold of the curtain that the wizard is hiding behind in the Wizard of Oz, and we opened it up, but it doesn't seem to generate the interest, and people, they'll talk, but will they act? That's the
Well,
problem.
that's just it. And it's part of the reason why I contacted you today, Phil, to do this. I mean, it's a little bit abrupt, a little bit spontaneous, but I was like, holy crap! I mean, well, first off, I thought he was going to get arraigned on Thursday, but it turns out
Hmm.
it's going to be next Thursday rather. But
Monday.
Monday, sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
after this. But point being, like people have to realize that like all Thomas was trying to do, guys, and like I've heard a lot of skepticism. I heard a lot of trolls. I heard a lot of this. I heard a lot of that. But look, anyone listening, he was merely trying to bring back constitutional law to the state that he lived in. That was what he was trying to do. He was trying to get the people that lived in his state and the surrounding states to support him to turn over a corrupt government. Period.
Yeah, give it back to the people. Exactly.
That's right. That's right.
And
And
they just don't have anything to fear if the people aren't going to stand. There can be, and we were told that if the people fear their government, there is tyranny. If the government fears the people, there is liberty. But the government doesn't fear the people anymore because they're docile.
yeah, uh, wow. I just find it. I find it hard to believe. Actually, I don't find it hard to believe. I find it quite disturbing that your own countrymen are pretty much gonna hide behind the media and everything else when shit goes down. Tom took one for the freaking team here in this case, and I haven't seen enough support from people. I've seen a lot of complaining. Oh, he went about it wrong. He did it the wrong way.
Hmm.
And no, yeah. Oh, he
Hey, Robert.
Could have done
Robert. Yeah, we're losing you.
that. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, you're cutting out.
Sorry, it's the shoddy internet that I have here. But anyway,
Yeah,
or Google's just trying to shut us down. But whatever.
that could be too.
That's never happened before. But anyway, but yeah, seriously, I just find it despicable. Well, not despicable. That's a bit harsh, but I find it offensive that people that are on the fence stay on the fence when things start to get real and things start to go south. They're just sitting on the fence and they're not saying anything. Um,
Probably a lot of people. Probably a lot of people don't know this, but early after Thomas had been abducted, he was told that if he named everybody that was involved, he could actually walk free. But he had too much honor to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's he disappeared about what, a day and a half after he did the podcast with me on my show, and we were thinking of doing weekly shows to create awareness and stuff, and yeah, they just scooped him up.
Yeah.
And all the people out there that say that they're trying to support him, say something. Like, so many people have their noses stuck in their cell phones and in their smartphones, and nobody looks up anymore. They're always look into your smartphone, find this guy and support him. Then, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional because it's irritating. I mean, like, really,
Sure.
A lot can be done by people's positive support and coming out. I mean, that can affect some kind of decision making down the road.
Well, right now it's like your house is on fire, but no one wants to.
Yeah.
If my house is on fire and I had a fire here once, let me tell you, you act. You have to act, and you have to act fast, and you have to be decisive.
Right.
But these people, they'd be more upset if someone drove through their yard than someone actually hijacking their government.
Oh, they sit there and watch their house burn while they're on the phone with their insurance company.
Yeah. So
I don't know. That's
what
just
can I say?
That's my perception of it. You know what I mean, though? Like,
Well, I can tell you this: Gene and I aren't quitting, and I haven't taken the website down. And when I've been interviewed, I'm still calling for the resignation of the governor, the state attorney general, the Supreme Court justices. I'm calling for it. They should resign.
Yeah. Well, hey, maybe what can we tell the listeners to do? Like, how can they respond? How can they react? Well, if there's emails, I'll put them up in the description box a whole bit. Like, how can people get involved?
Right now, one of the most important things would be the court-appointed attorney has not given Thomas any of the evidence that's to be used against him. He is not telling him when court dates are set. Let's just put it this way. I called him once and left a message for him to call me so that at least I could get some information to disseminate to other people. And I left a message and he didn't call me. Now, when I call, I don't even get the option to leave a message. I believe he's turned his answering machine off, but I will give his fax number out. And I faxed him today and said, call me. But I would like to give his fax number out and for people to fax him and say, contact Phil Hudok and work with him so that we can get through this information curtain that they've created. I can't even go see Thomas. The phone calls hardly ever work. It's almost like we're incommunicado. So at least if we had a communication system, and I'd like to give this man's fax number out, and because he needs to be told, listen, you're hindering the rights of Thomas. He's not helping him at all. He's actually doing more harm than good.
Yeah, working against him in the fashion. Yeah,
because here he is supposed to be his legal representative, and he's nothing.
right.
So we don't want him to actually defend Thomas. We just want him to get the information to Thomas that Thomas needs so that he can defend himself. Thomas can defend himself if they would let him speak, but they will not let him do that. But he at least needs to know the information so that we can mount he can mount a defense and we can get the truth out.
He's kind of tied in I guess you could say a purgatory of jurisdiction, if you would.
He's in solitary confinement and has been for 100 days.
No, that's physically, but I mean in terms of legalities, he's kind of pushed himself into a jurisdictional purgatory, where like he can't operate under the court that is charging him. However, they can't charge him because of the statutes that don't apply to his constitutional rights that he's exerting.
Right. They have to play a game here.
Yeah. It's like a big tango, right? Yeah, and people listening, like, you guys have to realize that this is actually what's happening. And what Philip said about a war, this is a war. It's war of jurisdiction. It's a war of ideals. It's a good bloody fray.
Well, people are already experiencing the consequences of this corporate Borg, but what's coming in the future is going to make what's happening now like child's play, because it's going to get really bad.
Oh, I agree. Things like the Trans-Pacific Partnership. There's so many. There's so many. Even in Canada, there's Bill C-51, which is the secret police bill that was passed. Oh gosh, there's so many similar legislations passed across the Five Eyes and all of the other, I guess you could say, allies and participants in this game. It's brutal. It's really brutal and quite depressing. And for anybody waking up, it's quite daunting and quite you just want nothing to do with it.
Yeah, if anyone can get there on the 25th at 9 o'clock in Parkersburg Circuit Court, that would be fantastic. His first hearing, Robert, I made 19 signs. I made 19 signs, and 7 people showed up. We couldn't even use half the signs that I made.
No kidding.
That's sad.
Wow.
And it's mainly fear. Mainly fear.
Really is. I agree 100%. Yes. Yeah, it is.
As a matter of fact, when we first started this action, which was simply petitioning our state legislature during the session, and I had a cameraman there, and Gene and I were there, and that's on YouTube. You can find it, and under my channel, I have 140 some YouTube videos.
Right.
But the people on the conference calls said, "Well, we're surprised you didn't get arrested. That's just for petitioning, for talking to our."
I remember that.
It's like they were surprised we didn't get arrested. It's like, well, no wonder you're fearful. You're so timid and unbelievable. I just
and then after the fact, you get a bunch of wonks that come out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, well, he went about it wrong in the first place," and this and that. Nothing makes me more upset than somebody bitching about someone doing something and getting nailed for it when the person complaining hasn't done a damn thing.
Well, we were doing something and we were on the money. I mean, what we were doing, because of mainly Thomas's gift of actually discerning and studying, researching, thinking. It took me a while to really understand what Thomas was doing. And at some point in the beginning, I was pretty much operating on faith that he knew what he was talking about. The more I learned, the more I was with Thomas and Gene and talked to other people and did my own research. He was right on the money.
Phil, can I ask you a question honestly?
Sure.
And it has to do with your perception of how things work. Isn't it funny how the more complex you think it is, and as you go through this, it really is just common sense?
Well, I taught physics for 40 years, and it's amazing how you can take a complicated physics situation, and if you present it properly, pretty much anyone can understand it. There are some people that can't do that. They can't relate and can't bring a complex situation and put it out in simple terms. But, as I taught years and years and years, I became better at doing that. And it's in some ways it's complicated, but there's a simplicity even in most things that are complicated.
Look, I would almost hazard a guess that 6-year-olds can figure this out.
Actually, I think they can figure it out better than the ones that are conditioned.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's like my mother is 85 years old, and she goes to a senior center and works, and they think she's like in her early 70s because she's very healthy, she's young looking for her age and everything.
I was going to say she's young for her age, yeah.
But what astonishes her the most is that people her age who should know better have been conditioned through the media, and she's like, you should know better. You grew up when I grew up, and why do you accept these changes that are wrong, that shouldn't be happening?
Yeah.
And it's pretty frustrating for her to see her peers almost regress to infantile levels.
You know what? I think that's, we're kind of I'm kind of sidetracking here, but I think that's kind of the same thing that's happened to everyone in these circles of reality analysis and what have you. Like these people are seeking the truth. You get the odd few that look at the rest and say, "Hey, what's wrong with you? Why you can't see this? You can't see this car salesman? It's frustrating." And I think it's probably more frustrating for your grandmother because she's like, the youngsters don't know any better, and now she's looking at the people who are ready to fall off the planet sideways, and they're getting lost too. Like she's probably hoping they have Alzheimer's. Like that'll at least give them some dignity on the way out. Crying out loud.
Well, but, you got to understand, Robert, and this is something I've said all through the battle that we've been in, and that is, this is first and foremost a spiritual battle, and you've got to understand that the dark side, they want your soul, okay? Yeah. And I feel very sorry for these people who should know better. The Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. And, the New World Order wants us to voluntarily walk into the servitude of their system and the damnation of their system. That's important. If you don't get that, if you don't understand the spiritual battle, number one, you can't fight appropriately. And basically what you're doing now is suicidal. If you don't understand the spiritual aspect, if you think you can fight this in the flesh, And that's one reason Gene and Thomas and I entered Scripture, into the court record in the Supreme Court, and used maxims of law, not statutory law, maxims, time-tested truths. You see, and so I warn I've been in this battle, Robert, for almost half as long as you've been alive. Well, longer than half as long as you've been alive, and I've seen a lot of people burn out who want to fight the New World Order, but they want to do it totally in the flesh, and you can't. It's a spiritual battle. Yeah, you fight it in the flesh, but you better understand the spiritual battle.
Well, I've been in this battle at least half as long as I've been alive, which is at least 20 years, and I found out from the inside through the military, through the internal politics, and watching how it correlates to what's happening in the government and the media circles and what have you. And I also ran a bulletin board system and a big Fido Opus network and the whole bit, but we won't get into that. But yeah, no, I've been around a while doing this sort of thing, and this has always been the number one subject that comes back up, and it is a spiritual battle, and it's something I've learned. I'm spiritual. I'm not religious. I'm not book religious. If you follow my meaning, I am spiritual. I'm spiritual as all heck. Let me tell you. But I do see it. I do see what's happening in Scripture. I'm also I'm a student of nature and history, and historical reference. So, yeah, no, I'm well aware of what's going on on the spiritual front, and you're absolutely right. I mean, this is why the dark forces are winning right now, but they're only winning because they're in the final act of their play, and they're going to lose their lease very, very soon, which is why they're pushing the envelope. They're cranking it up to 11, if you would. Am I not right?
I think there's a sprint for the top of the hill, and well, they're actually behind in their timetable. If you study them, they're behind.
There's competition too. There's a few bloodlines running for it.
Oh yeah. I mean, they'll eat their own, and they often do. You look at the Rothschilds, and I think who it was hung over in France. One of the Rothschilds. It was, there was the way he was. The way he was murdered, it was obvious that this was a message, and I feel sorry for people whose their whole existence is simply to get what they can get and step on who they'll have to step on, and they're pathetic. They're very pathetic. Thomas is an honorable man.
Well, and this is good that we're talking about this, because the grand scope of things in the big picture, what they're trying to do is eliminate our natural inalienable rights that we have in lieu of these corporate-esque laws and statutes. Like, if people could get that term into their head, statutes instead of law, because law governs what is right and just. That's where the term justice comes from. Justice comes from justice. It's really actually not very difficult for people to grasp, and once they overthink it, it gets all way complex. But really, like, when these people are talking about laws, they're talking about justice. Statutes. Yeah. In a new justice system, and the New World Order. And that's why all these countries are suddenly, they're switching over.
Mhm.
Like, it
Yeah,
starts off.
Robert. Yeah, give me 30 seconds to pick up something because I want to share it with your audience. Okay,
Oh, absolutely.
I'll
Yeah,
be
go
right
for it.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, everybody, that's Philip Hudok. I don't know who's just come in and who's been gone, but we're talking about Thomas Deegan and kind of going off track here, talking about the New World Order.
Yeah, I have in my hand a 1950s, a series 1950 $100 bill. Okay, so it's the
Right.
exact same age as I am. I was born in 1950, so this is 65 years old. Now, in the upper left-hand corner, it says, "This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, and is redeemable in lawful money at the United States Treasury or at any Federal Reserve Bank." Now, it says it's redeemable in lawful. It says it's legal, but it's redeemable in lawful money. There's a difference
Right.
between legal and lawful. And then at the bottom, it says, under Benjamin Franklin's image, it says, "Will pay to the bearer on demand $100." Because this is not $100. We call it a $100 bill, but it is not really $100 by
Right.
our Constitution. Only silver and gold are legal tender,
And
or
what year
are
was it?
actually legal money.
What year
This is
was it?
1950.
No, yeah, that's 1950. What year was it that the gold standard got destroyed? It was
Well, it was during Nixon's administration. That would have been in the 60s.
67,
Hmm.
right? 67
Yeah,
sound about
that's
right?
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
So they slowly eased that out, right?
Right. In other words, you cannot get lawful money. There is no lawful money in the United States now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give an example. About 20 years ago, I saw a Jeep that I wanted to buy, and I didn't actually have enough cash. And I was talking to a colleague of mine that I worked with. He was a guidance counselor. I was a teacher, and he said, "Why don't you go to my neighbor? She's a bigwig in this certain bank, and tell her you would like to borrow some money on the Jeep." And I thought, okay, so I went to her, and she said, "Well," she said, "really, we have to have collateral." And I said, "Well, I have gold." And she said, "We can't take gold." I said, "What?" She
What?
said, "We can't take gold. It's collateral." Now, it used to be the statement was as good as gold.
Right. Right. That is an
Okay.
old thing.
And so I went and talked to a bank president, and he told me FDIC rules say that they cannot take two things. There's only two things they can't take as collateral. Guess what they are? Gold and
And
silver.
silver.
They cannot take They cannot take lawful money as collateral. Everything we're operating in la la land. Okay,
Right.
you could
It's
use cows. You could use cows for collateral. You could use a house. You could use property. You could use bales of hay, but you can't use gold or silver.
mhm, right. It's like yeah, fiat wonderland.
Hmm. Right. In this fiat world, they can't have real. Everything has to be fiat.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I some people still can't wrap their heads around what fiat currency is. I mean, they get it. They work hard for their money, so they get their money, they take it, and they buy stuff, right? They buy goods,
Hmm.
and fair enough. I mean, but when when people try to rationalize things like inflation, that's when it really starts to not make sense. They don't realize that the debt ceiling is being raised year after year after year because when you can't pay back a dollar for a dollar that got invented, that dollar turns
Hmm.
into $1 trillion a few generations later.
Yeah, they
It's
call that fractional banking. Exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
you know that's why a loaf of bread cost 98 cents 5 years ago. Now it costs $1.37. You know, like it's
Yeah. I understand the prices of food in Canada are going crazy.
oh geez, are you kidding me? Beef beef just took a huge wow. Um, you know, you could get a pound of ground beef for about three bucks 49, maybe
Hmm.
you know, about a year
Hmm.
ago. Oh yeah, that same pound
Yeah.
of ground beef, that'd be about 6.5, maybe $7. I saw a 30-pound roast, which would have possibly fed, like, you know, uh, a couple and maybe a toddler. Yeah, it was just ridiculous. I mean, inflation is what I call a signal. It's a sign. I was supposed to actually have an interview. Sorry about that. That's my chair sliding. I was supposed to have an interview with Gregory Manarino just a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to try and reschedule it. I happened to have gone up north to a gold claim and worked up in the bush, so I was kind of internetless. But he would tell you, like, I mean, these are signs, these are signals, like, and people don't pick up on them. It's like a salesperson who isn't really a closer, and he ends up talking himself out of a sale. You know what I mean? um,
Hmm. Hmm.
like, the signals are so blatant, he turns people off, and he ends up not making a sale at the end of the day. It's the same thing here with these people that aren't detecting the signals. They're just like, you know, rummaging through all the white noise of society, and then suddenly they're not picking up on what's actually happening. And, like, it really drives me nuts. It drives me
Yeah.
absolutely batshit crazy, to be completely honest with you, Phil. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Let me give you an example of something that astonished me when I found out.
right?
I was listening to a shortwave program. This would have been about 20 years ago, and the man who was being interviewed said to the host, he said, "I can tell you how much you paid for your house." And the man said, "You don't know how much I paid for my house." And the guy said, "I know exactly what you paid for your house." And so this perked my attention, and I'm listening, and the man said, "Well, how much did I pay?" And the guest said, "Well, you paid $20." And the man said, "No, I didn't." And he said, "Yes, you did. If you look at your," he said, "I'll bet you if you look at your deed, on your deed, it will say for $20 and other consideration." I went to the safe. I opened the safe, pulled out my deed, which I had read before, and it said for $20 and other
Other consider.
consideration on my deed. Now, I'll tell you why they do that. It's like the difference between small time stealing something and grand larceny. There's a certain amount, a certain value at which the punishment, the crime becomes bigger. Or in the case of your house, because you said only $20 and other consideration, you do not have the right to a jury trial. If, let's say, someone wants to take your house, a bank or something else, because guess what? It says on
Mm,
there $20 and other
other
consideration.
consideration. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And people that think that their certificate of title on their car is actually the title. No, it's a certificate of title, just
Mm.
like these Federal Reserve notes aren't dollars. Okay. You if you go to another state, you can't take that certificate that you have and say, okay, I want a license in such and such state. No, that state has to get the birth certificate of your car. I forget what they actually call it. Um,
Uh,
and it
probably,
has to be,
uh, probably a VIN number, I think.
yeah, it has to be transferred. In other words, the reason you can drive in West Virginia with West Virginia plates is because they have ownership. They've taken ownership of your car.
Wow.
They're allowing you the privilege to drive. They're giving you the privilege of a driver's license, and they actually changed the definition of the word driver, which used to be a commercial term, but they just changed the definition and said it's anyone who uh, it's not even operate. An operator is also a driver, which is a commercial term. But
Well,
you know, you
that's exactly why if you get stopped on a highway in North America, I'm not sure about other countries, but when you get stopped in North America anywhere, they ask you, are you the owner operator of this motor vehicle? They're very specific in their wording, and I don't even think half the police even know why they're asking the question, to be honest with you. They don't even realize the relevance because they think they're working for the law, but it's statutory law and it's built on top of common or natural law. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
I'm sure you're right. You're right.
The entire like, I mean, there's a huge free man movement in the UK as well as in Canada. And I'm pretty certain that the same rules apply in the United States, and only because these are all based on Commonwealth principles, sensibilities, and power. I mean, they all go back to it all goes back to the families that are running the show in the first place, and it's not by accident.
No.
But again, this all boils down to jurisdiction, and I still have to. I really can't play the video of Thomas Deegan at his court hearing. That was absolutely with her magistrate. that was
Well, I'll
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely brilliant.
Let's just tell people, Robert, if they go to hudok.info, which is my website. Okay,
Yeah.
hudok.info.
Hudok.info. Yep.
On the third line down on the homepage, it says "Just Us on Parade." Magistrate Waters conducts hearing, and if they click on that, they can watch it. So they can watch the YouTube video. But yeah, that's a classic. That should go down with the Wizard of Oz and
for those of you who are twisted, it's not only entertaining, but it's also educational. And people who are a little bit smarter can look into it and go, "Oh, that's how stuff works." Because you don't have to play ball. You don't have to play their game. Like this is a jurisdictional war. And once people start to realize that, now, yes, there are certain things that you can't do, like you can't go and declare absolution from that jurisdiction and then ask for social services and support. I mean, eventually, once you expatriate yourself, you're a done deal. So don't ask for support from the system that you're trying to fight. But at the same time, once you're willing to make that call and make that choice, then hey, you know what? Tip of the hat to you. You're no longer supporting the those guys.
It's a real refreshing feeling, Robert, too, when you become free of the mind control. And I would say this, even though Thomas is suffering, he's in solitary, he's not being fed well, the temperature isn't even controlled very well. But I can tell you this, in a lot of ways, he's more of a free man than a lot of zombies that are walking around.
True story. I agree 100%. Yeah, my love goes out to him, man. I find that kind of shit inspirational, to be honest with you. And he's not just there because a lot of people perceive him as just being I don't want to play with this. He tried to restore the Constitution in West Virginia.
Yeah, he's really one in a million. I got to know him, and he's for real. I mean, he's an honest, good person who sees what's coming. He's been dealt a lot of grief, and but he's been able to rise above that as a human, his humanity is intact. But it's hard.
Well,
It's hard. I feel for him.
well, for those people out there who haven't seen the video of him, he retains his composure the entire time. He sees the system for the joke that it is, and isn't a smartass about it. Just very protective of his natural rights, and it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
And can I give the fax number of the attorney?
Absolutely, do that.
Okay, it's 304, and it's 354, and the last four numbers are 6744. So I'll read it one more time: 304 354 6744, and tell this man that he needs to act in Thomas's interest, even though he's not going to be Thomas's legal representative. In other words, Thomas is not going to give his power of attorney to an attorney. You know what I mean? He's his own man. He doesn't need someone in the system who is probably not going to help him.
Yeah, what kind of world do we live in when the term power of attorney actually becomes an oxymoron? It's kind of ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well,
and I'll go on. I'll talk to anybody. I've never turned down any interviews. I'm front and center on this. That's probably one of the things that's keeping me free, is that I'm so transparent and so out there that it would be more damaging for them to probably incarcerate me than to just try to withstand my tax.
I might be in the United States soon. Hopefully they let me in. We'll see how that goes.
Come and visit me.
I shall. If I have no idea the path I'm taking, but I'll keep you posted, brother.
Yeah, I mean, George Bothwell came down from Owen Sound when he found out. Yeah, he came here twice. As a matter of fact, I had him speak at a seminar.
I was going to say, if that could happen, maybe I could see my ex from Owen Sound. You never know. Yeah. But yeah, man. Wow. Yeah, you guys, everyone listening, like, take heed of what we're talking about, because this isn't this isn't monkey business here. This is like real stuff, and it's not just West Virginia. Like, this is happening in a state near you.
Yeah, not just a state. We had people from Europe.
Canada.
Yeah, they were watching what we were doing here because it's key to their control.
Yeah, and it's Yeah, and if anybody is unsure what I meant when I said the Five Eye Nations, I was talking about Canada, United States, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and any other countries under Commonwealth dictatorship. And it goes beyond that too. But that's just to begin with. We won't get into that.
Yeah, another story.
yeah, completely another story. But I mean, like, we'll start in our backyard first, and then we can move on from there.
Amen.
Phil, I think we're gonna bring this to a close for now. I really enjoyed having you on, man, and let's do this again.
Okay.
The arraignment's on Monday. Maybe if you hear from Tom, and maybe we can get together before then, and maybe we can organize something to get some kind of update, I guess.
Yeah, and hey, maybe sometime Tom and I can both go on together with you.
That would be great. I would really like that. And I've been waiting for Tom to get back to me because, hey, Last time I saw him, he wasn't in jail.
I know. Same here. I haven't seen him since he was abducted. I can't see him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you, Robert. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome, Phil. I'm sorry. It took me a while to get back to you. I know we kind of bounced messages back and forth, and I've had a bit of a spotty kind of a run myself. It's been a little bit, a bit of a crazy adventure on my own, but geez, here we are.
Yeah, well, I like the term "suck it up." That's what we need to do as a people. Suck it up and get it done.
Suck it up, Buttercup. That's what we say. But yeah, it's been a pleasure, Phil. I want to thank all the listeners out there as well for listening in. Yeah, there might have been a lot of talk here tonight, but listen, all of this is about helping you guys wake up and realize what's going on. Phil, do you have anything you want to say to anyone on our way out?
Yeah, hudok.info. Please go there. There's a lot of good information, and it needs to get out.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And God bless you.
There you go. I was waiting for that. But yeah, Phil, send me a Gmail message with all the links, and I'll make sure that I'll put everything into the description. I'll just update that, and then
Will do.
We can move on from there.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, very welcome. And
bye.
God bless you, and peace out, Phil. Thank you, people listening, and we'll do this again. Robert J. Morris out, and Phil.